For some people, they don't need to have an offline summer. They need a reality check of their privilege. Recently, there's been a surge of ironically offline content, such as having an offline summer, living like it's summer 2005, curing brain rot, digital detoxifying. And while the intentions and goals of these are all well and good, I have yet to see anyone talking about the problem at the core of these trends. People cosplaying poverty and low income. I have seen dozens and dozens of these videos flooding my feed, and each one I see fills me with just a little bit more rage every single time. So I'm finally going to talk about it. But let's back up a bit. This all started for me when I saw Eddie Burback's video, I Got Rid of My Phone for a Month. It's a great video, but there was one moment specifically where I literally snapped and had to cut the video off because it sent me into a spiral of such frustration and irritation that I just couldn't handle it anymore. The premise of the video is exactly what it says. No clickbait here. Eddie takes his phone, his smartphone, and locks it away in a safe for a month. And to replace certain functions of it, he gets tangible items like an alarm clock, a watch, and an actual house phone. And this is the moment.
I went even older and began looking into getting a landline. Luckily, this was pretty simple. Some major phone companies, for some reason, still offer a landline service.
Well, Eddie, if you must know what that for some reason is, it's because a lot of us have no other choice. Contrary to popular belief, cell phone service is actually not available everywhere. I know. Sucks, right? And this is not a dig at Eddie. This is a dig at the hellscape that capitalism and the lack of public access has become. I love Eddie. I love that video. And I want to make very clear that in no way am I saying that Eddie is making light of poverty, disenfranchised persons, or low income, or anything yucky within that sphere. There's no Eddie slander on this channel. Rather, it was him saying that which led me down a rabbit hole of thinking about the implications of such a mindset at large. Because Eddie isn't alone in thinking that. In fact, I'd wager most people have normalized thinking about things like this, especially regarding technology or tools. Usually, the phrases sound more like, well, that's obsolete, or clearly no one does or uses that anymore. But in many cases, that's completely not true. And I don't just mean the odd duck from down the road who insists on using tools from the 1800s because he swears it keeps worms out his garden. There are still thousands of people out there who not only use, but need these resources, often because they ain't got no alternative. When you stop and think about it, you're probably like, well, yeah, Chey, clearly disenfranchised persons in like some countries that don't have access to modern amenities. Yes, but it's not just them. And that's also a big part of the problem, because it's not just across the world. It's in your own backyard. For example, I'm willing to bet that plenty of you do not know what this is. And you know what? That's totally fine. I'm not going to come at you with some BS like only real poor kids remember this, just poor kid things. This is a kerosene lamp. And if you do know what it is, chances are you've maybe never used one, but you're just like, didn't the Pilgrims have those or something? One of the best examples that I can give you personally for that it isn't just the oddballs down the road who use these things, that rely on these things. This example didn't even occur to me at first to share with you because, like I said, it was such a normal part of my life. It's just how it was. I didn't realize until I went out in the world and met people whose definitions of normal were completely different, that they had never experienced this or never experienced the cops coming over and fighting with their family, every Thanksgiving like it's some kind of holiday tradition. While I was filming at my parents' house, a situation occurred. My mom was like, hey, is this a perfect example of what you're talking about in your video, especially, in regards to everyday people still relying on this kind of technology that a lot of other people think is outdated or obsolete, as well as the situations that people end up using these things in, being considered the same things, outdated, obsolete, not a worry, a thing of the past, yet they're a normal way of life for so much of the population that isn't considered a general part of the population. Just outliers. Power outages. Whenever it rains hard or the wind blows decently hard, the power goes out. A lot of people hardly ever experience consistent power outages like this. It's usually once in a blue moon or a few times a season event, and never for very long, so flashlights and candles usually work pretty well. But this is very common for us, and it mainly happens at night. Especially in the summer, it's very commonplace, obviously, because the grid is already super strained anyhow, and we're in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of nice when it happens in the summer evenings because we go outside and just enjoy the nature and the cooling air. It also helps that it stays lighter outside longer. But eventually, we gotta go back in. And we couldn't back then, and even now, afford to have these battery-sucking lamps on all the time. Not to mention how hot the light is that they give off. So, we've often used kerosene lanterns. A lot more when I was growing up before LED lamps became commonplace. But kerosene lanterns also give off a softer light, they last longer, and they're cheaper. Especially only since you need to use them for an hour or two till you go to bed. It lets us save those batteries in case we need them for something more important, like needing to go outside or just not having to buy replacements so often. Because, once again, money. So we adapt. When the power outages happened on those steaming summer nights, and we'd have no fans, what I'd have to do instead is climb into my parents' bed and sleep at the foot of it that looked out the window where their fan usually sits. It was the best and the only place to catch a direct breeze from a bed in the house. I can't tell you how many nights I laid there looking at this view or sleeping out on the porch because it was cooler somehow. And early on, I learned the sound of these utility trucks. Personally, I think it's the reason I could tell bass better than any other frequency of sound since I grew up listening for these trucks. Because when I heard them nearby or coming down the road, even going down the back road behind our house, I knew our power would be coming back on shortly. At least hopefully. And to this day, even half asleep, I can still tell you the sound of those trucks. They're just different from any other vehicle. These kind of experiences, when they become your normal, shape you. How can these things be obsolete or outdated when they've been such a big part of the recent past and are still very much the current condition for so many people? Hello, crow babies. My children are out to play. For example, let's take the villain of this trend, the internet. Many people generally assume that internet access is available everywhere, whether through Wi-Fi or cell service. Now, money may be a hindrance and may be a barrier to entry to access, but the internet is there to take. Well, Chey, clearly out in the middle of Montana or something. Try 20-something miles from Nashville. Where my parents live, the only internet option besides a singular bar of cell service, if you're lucky, is dial-up. And it's been that way since 2007. No Starlink, no underground cables, no fiber, nothing. And they're in civilization. There ain't no streaming, no Wi-Fi, none of that. So if they want to be connected to the outside world within their own home, they need landlines. But most people don't think about everyday people like them having their resources limited by anything except money. The only people that they can imagine struggling otherwise, such as with general access, happen to be the furthest outliers. Why? Smarticle sounding answer is widespread normalization of poverty and working class erasure. This is nothing new. It has been going on since the dawn of time. But it's getting more and more prevalent and more in the public eye with the invention of the interwebs. One of my personal favorites, these mining coveralls, but they're designer. Ah yes, exploiting the working class ironically, just so you can go pay $23 for a coffee and look like you actually spent a whole day working in the coal mines.
I mean, it's not like we're working in a coal mine.
Don't get me wrong, most of the time, it ain't intentional. Most people aren't out here going around like, God, I hate poor people. Rather, in daily life, they're only connected to other people that are like them. And if they haven't faced adversity themselves or know anyone who has, then it only stands to reason that the situations that they're most familiar with are the ones that they consider normal, a baseline for people. But that's the dangerous part. If everyone is like this, then there's no one in the alternative. They don't exist. And so they're not worth thinking about. Or, if they are outliers, then they're just rare exceptions. And so they don't count, because they're a case of their own. A lot of times, though, there's something within that way of life, or practice, or tool, that is appealing to these people's senses in some way. It could appeal to something lacking in this person's life. Or it just seems so different from their common zeitgeist that there's a bygone romantic element about it. It's something rare or a lost art. It makes people curious. It makes them want to find it, to try it. It's new to them, and it's exciting, it's exotic. And it's ignorance such as this that led to an offline or low-tech lifestyle becoming the newest trend in a long line of cosplaying poverty trends. What they all have in common, though, is choosing to romanticize a lifestyle based on the lack of choice. The people participating ain't the problem. It's the trend that is normalizing behavior that ignores the important role of choice. People are choosing to live like this while many others can't. These people can bounce back and forth in their joy at will. Commodifying a way of life that isn't an option for so many people is exclusion based on conscious choice. It says, hey, thanks for opening the door. We're gonna come right in and take whatever decor we like, and you can have the building back and whatever's left, we guess. It's the privilege of being able to pick and choose the pretty parts without having to deal with any of the real-life repercussions and consequences. For some people, they don't need to have an offline summer. They need a reality check of their privilege. That's obviously the minority, though. For the most part, people are just connecting with the antipathy and the exhaustion surrounding algorithms and the suffocating digital space. They're using it as a way to ground themselves again. Trust me, I get it. Because it is a good idea in theory. I truly do think that the exercise of disconnecting oneself from the online sphere and actually getting back out there in the real world is a great one. Economical rants aside. Because consumerism has been sold to us as a hobby, and most of us can't afford it. People are doing this to feel again, not to take advantage of others. I think the reason that this trend and so many others like it have taken off recently is because what people really want is connection and control again. Tactileness, tactility, usefulness, things that are worth their time. Here's how to be mindful about it and get what you're after. Use online as a tool, not the solution. It's an incredible privilege to even have access to the web, let alone all the sites and information on it. Don't let the news or them disconnect you. It's understandable to get overwhelmed and to need a break, but we need to be uncomfortable sometimes. Do you think a flower or a plant that is fighting its way through the soil or fighting its way through a sidewalk crack is comfortable all the time? No. But rest and disconnection are just as important. So really, what you need is, as much as you can, delete. Something refreshing that I do as a small example every month is I go through all my social media and I unfollow people like crazy. I go on an unfollow spree. You've probably heard this preach to kingdom coming back, but curate, I hate that word, especially in regards to digital stuff, what you actually want to see and care about. Keep it up to date with things you see and want to see and care about. And I don't know who needs to hear this, because I certainly did back in the day. Delete those people from high school that you were never friends with, but that you're just nosy about. You don't need them. I promise you ain't missing nothing. Delete them. Delete your apps if you feel so inclined, if you feel it'll help. Delete all the photos that you can. Delete, delete, delete. Unsubscribe from emails and newsletters that you never actually read or don't find yourself actually using, except for where you signed up to get that one-time coupon code. When you realize how many uns you had to do and how easy they were to do, you'll realize how many irons you had in the fire. No wonder you're freaking exhausted all the time. Get it. Hoard it. CDs, tapes, etc. Learn how to use them. Fix them. Destroy them. Play with them. Experiment. Whatever the hell. Just get your hands on something besides sparkly glass and touchscreens. We're living in an age where almost anything can be found on the internet, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because while it's great, it's also overwhelming. And one of the biggest problems comes with these companies forcing your reliability on them for access to it. You have to sub to this streaming service to get this show. It's an Amazon Prime exclusive book. It's a Spotify Premium exclusive. And these exclusives began with the correlation of VIP feature in mind. However, now they're just closer to the sense of the word exclusion. If you don't have access to the supplier, you don't got access to the goods. And the worst part that's becoming more and more of a prevalent issue, I mean, it's been an issue since the dawn of the digital age, but is becoming more and more blatantly obvious. What they can giveth, they taketh away. People bemoan this about Netflix for years, I think in the public zeitgeist of being like, oh, well, this show's being taken off after these many years, this show's being taken off, blah, 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 blah. But at an increasingly alarming rate, we are not only seeing shows, but we are seeing books, movies, video games, databases, archived databases, entire websites seemingly scrubbed off the face of the earth at the whim of these companies that hold the keys. The greatest trick that capitalism ever did was disguising dependency as convenience, and now we're paying for it. Convenience in and of itself is exhausting and boring. Relying on something else to do all the work. Because then, what's left for us? What's the mystery? What's the freaking point? Life is hard. Life is inconvenient. And sometimes it should be. That's how we grow. That's how we challenge. That's how we learn more about ourselves. Because the more that you rely on something else to do something, the more you give it power and the more you give it agency. And the internet is now quickly learning how that can be turned into a tool for control at the hands of these big companies. So take that control back. Get your hands on something. There are other ways to get movies and shows besides streaming. Not that I'm suggesting any way in particular. Take time to load a DVD player. Or a VHS. Use a pen, a pencil, hell, color with a crayon. This is vital, because the more that you do personally, the more that you can become curious, the more that you can discover and empower yourself with knowledge, which is exactly what they don't want. It's bad for their dependency model. It's bad for consumerism, but it's good for you. And you can use your powers for good to then help others. For example, I'm currently writing a horror novel, and yes, I do write on both my phone and my laptop, because they're what I most often have close at hand. However, I do make a concentrated effort to try and write everything from ideas to drafts to full-on scenes in my writing journal, and then type it up on my typewriter. She's from the 70s, and I got her at an estate sale for $20. As you can see, she works perfectly. I love her so much. She has been so good to me. Now, a lot of people might look at her and be like, oh, well, that's pretty cool, but can you even still get parts for that thing if something breaks? Probably not from the manufacturer, but I'm sure that I can, in general. And here's where my point comes in. There are millions of people out there who are the shining stars of my advice. DIYers. Get your hands on something. Play with it. Get curious about it and innovate to help others. I cannot tell you how many people there are in the audio world who started making their own pieces and parts for equipment because the company no longer made them or the company no longer existed overall. But they make them. Just regular people in their garage or in their basement in their downtime. It's not even a full-time gig for most people. It's just by request, like, oh, you need that thing? Yeah, I'd be in my garage this weekend. I'll make it. They're saving priceless pieces of equipment from being phased out in favor of disposable and inaccessible technology. Innovation and necessity can bring about accessibility when done the right way. But back to media. When you own it, when you actually own it, you engage with it differently. I got distracted by gnats. There's a completely different feeling watching a VHS that you actually have to load in the deck and hit play and hit the skip button for all the coming soon to theaters or whatever. And those that know, if you know, you know. Versus clicking on something and then being able to flick back in a matter of seconds and choose another show to watch. Because it calls not just for your attention, but your consideration. You have to engage if you want anything to do with it. And so, as a byproduct, it makes you more intentional with what and how you spend your time. I can't speak for others, and I ain't no psychologist. I think that much is very clear. But I 100% believe that's why I hold a more special place in my heart for the media that I grew up with pre-internet access. Because it wasn't as disposable or replaceable. Sitting down to watch a new episode premiere every week or cleaning my CD made it tangible. It made me carve out part of my day for it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Whereas now, with the internet, with our feeds, that's exactly what it is. And this is why you hear people referring to it so often as compulsory behavior. Because in a digital age, with these feeds, it has become the place for what is happening. And back in the day, it was limited. Old Chey shakes fist at sky, but Instagram had a limit from what I remember. It would say, oh, you're all caught up now. An incentive to be like, oh, well, that's it. I haven't missed anything. Whereas now, that feed doesn't stop. And it's no longer just what you've carved out. Now, that dam has been dropped, and it's suggested posts, sponsored posts. You might like this. Your friends like that, even if you don't care. But we know the Pandora's box that is available to us on the internet, that everything is happening there because everyone is on it all the time. And so it's this feeling of FOMO of, well, because this is where things are happening, it's like the town square effect. If I'm not there, then I'm going to miss it. And I don't want to hear about it from Bobby down the road. I need to be there to see it or see what's happening. That way I can know about it as as soon as possible, and also because there's so many things to learn and we know that, so we just keep letting it go. It's feeding us the lie that this is where life is happening, that this is where life is captured, and it is your quickest and most convenient way to take part in it, to have some small part in it. And people don't want to miss out on that interaction. They don't want to miss out on the news. They don't want to miss out on learning something, whether it's facts about history or the announcement of a friend's wedding. And being made to feel like that's our main option, that that's our main choice. Otherwise, don't even think about it, because what a weirdo. You actually go talk to your friends in real life when you could just find out about it on your feed in 2 seconds versus calling someone up and, God forbid, having a conversation. That's what turns the behavior from want to feeling like have to. And it's stupid. It's bullshit. The internet is constantly throwing shit at us with content, whether we want it or not. It's an unavoidable deluge of absolute sludge. We're in the non-stop river of it, and trying to carve out your niches is just like sitting in the bottom of the river, but sticking a straw up through the water hoping to breathe. And it turns out the water's only a few feet deep, and you want it to stop, but the only way to make it stop is for you to get your butt up and walk away. Make things matter to you again by engaging with them, and not just because they're thrown at you. Don't just take something that you go, oh, actually, this is quite nice. You go to it. Don't just let something come to you. Put in the work, honor your consideration, your attention, and your intention will thank you. This is why I think the rise in reading is coming back as strongly as it is, and I am so freaking glad. Because reading, like all tangible media, demands all of these things from you. Your attention, your consideration, your intention. But it gives back what it takes tenfold. It will leave you with impressions, knowledge, curiosity, and opinions that will last a lifetime and won't just be taken away on a dime by faceless companies choked with greed. So try and engage with everything that you can, especially with books. Read them all, good and bad, if just to learn what you consider personally good and bad, because you can. Soak up every little bit of knowledge, hoard it, because you never know when the opportunity could be taken away. And as much as you consume, try to create too. Of course, you can do this, like I said, by being inspired to be curious and discover things through movies, music, video games, any kind of creative medium. But get hands-on with your art, too, for all the same reasons. There are infinite possibilities, and there will never be art nor creativity like yours. You're the only one with that access, that key, and no one can take it away. Use that power, even if it sounds goofy and cliche. Jollering. I tried to say journaling and coloring at the same time. Journaling. Coloring. Take a marker and doodle. It doesn't have to mean anything, and good doesn't even factor in here. It's not the quality of the work that matters, it's the quality of your time. Be goofy. Be bad. Make a mess. Simply because you can. That's your freedom. Good, bad, make it the world's problem, not yours. Connection. Use the internet to find and discover things again. Your local places of business, interests, or gatherings. Then, use that information to find a community. A real one. Even if it starts online, make it real. Make it happen yourself. Get together for a group craft night, or just meet up for a cup of coffee. Whatever you're into, find your local community for it. I'm the only one! No, you're not. They want you to feel that way. Algorithms have gotten so oddly specific that once the novelty loses its sheen, you realize how isolating it actually is. I built this algorithm brick by brick. Then where's your fucking house, Jared? Yes, I know it's a meme, but even then, we're trying to connect the intangible to the tangible, because we still want proof, something that shows that we were here. The only way to do that in real life, though, is to show up. Don't get me wrong, I think it's super cool that such a massive part of our culture throughout the world, throughout the centuries, has continued to be influenced by memes, whether it is the curation of them, whether it's the creation for them, creation of them, whether by the culture or for the culture. I think it's really cool. I think it tells us a lot about history, I think it tells us a lot about anthropology. It's awesome. However, it's when the digital sharing of them becomes a kind of social currency that then turns into a sole focal point of connection for so many people that it's just really freaking sad, dude. But if dedicated groups aren't your thing, you can still build your community in other ways. You don't have to be a social butterfly, but as much as you're able, go and frequent places. You can be known by just becoming a regular at your coffee shop, record shop, bookstore. This will involve talking to people face to face, but it won't put a focal point of pressure on you. Maybe you, like many of the people for whom and why this trend is not a choice, are short on funds, or for some other accessibility reason, you can't frequent these kinds of businesses or go out to these local stores as much as you would like. You can still find your people. Real community is free, and it is felt. Look either online or in person at your local businesses when you're able to go, at your local parks, your rec centers, your libraries. Look for their flyers and information. I just finished emptying out some crayons to take to the Crayon Initiative box at my local library. I know it's not a ton, but I also don't have a ton of crayons. I would have used up these little broken ends and stuff eventually, but I'm more glad that I can send them in a way to be recycled and reused and reloved. That feels good. So I'm going to take that to the library, maybe check out a book or two. I'm not sure. We'll see when we get there, but I am going to check out the library sale as well. Utilize your local government websites and your niche local Facebook groups. Many often have free classes or activities that are open to the public, especially during the spring and summer months, including some that are hosted by local businesses or organizations that may not have access to traditional promotional tools. For example, maybe Barbara from down the road down yonder might have the best snow cone food truck in the whole dang county. And maybe she wants to host a free summer bash where she gives out free snow cones. But maybe she can't get out to these local businesses to hand out flyers, so she posts in your town's local foodie group. If you want to get to know the heart of your community, it'll be at events like that. Because there's no gatekeeping. People ain't obligated to be there. Chances are, they just truly want to be. This is where you'll find your people. And more of yourself. Because if you go and start talking to people, just chatting about the event or whatever you have in common with it, and again, don't have to be a social butterfly, chances are you'll probably see these people at more events again in the future. And you'll build your community that way too. Community doesn't have to mean being best friends. It's just being known and cared about. Caring for each other. A common way to do this is to get into your area's music scene. Not that I'm biased or anything. You don't have to play anything yourself. Just learn about the local scene. I guarantee there are plenty of free events being hosted by your local music community of all genres. From fundraisers to showcases to patio acoustic shows. For instance, I'm part of the Nashville hardcore community, and as a perfect example, Orthodox recently had a free parking lot show. I found out about this by utilizing the internet as a tool. I saw it posted about in the niche local Nashville hardcore group. I saw it posted by the band. I saw it posted by friends I had made at other events like this. Was I already also going to their album release show planned for the next day? Yes, but that's not the point. It was a free show being hosted in the parking lot of the basement, and I was like, hell yeah, I gotta go. Not just because it's a parking lot show, and parking lot shows are usually awesome, and Orthodox is awesome, but the lineup was so stacked. I was a little bit nervous about going alone. I'm usually pretty comfortable going to shows alone, and I wasn't scared, but I like having people to go to shows with me, because I am the obnoxious social butterfly. And I was a little nervous because there was no one that I knew that could carve out time to actually go to this free show, because they were all normal adults and working at that time or just getting off work. I almost didn't go. I almost said, well, I'm gonna go see them the next day anyway, so what's it matter? But then I thought, no. I want to go. The lineup is stacked, and it's a different lineup from their album release show from their tour. And so that was also a factor. But I thought, I do want to be more involved in this community, because I'm not as involved as I want to be just because I live so far out from Nashville. But I try to go to as many shows as I can, and I'm trying to build up more of a friend group within the community that I love so much. And the way to do that is to actually be there, right? And so I went. I was a little bit nervous going alone because I didn't know anybody, but it was an amazing time. And this is one of the easiest places, like I said, to find common ground with people, even people that you don't know. I'm a little bit biased to the hardcore community because they are genuinely some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, and that goes for the metal community as well in terms of fans. But at both shows, not just the parking lot show, but both shows, I met so many people. I saw so many people that I knew, and I met so many new friends. The parking lot show, though, let's get back to that, because so many people showed out for that free parking lot show as a sign of support. There were so many people that just showed up simply because they heard about it. They had never listened to any of the bands, but they were like, this seems cool. Let's go out here and support this. Bam. Community. And a big part of the event was Bad Luck Burger Co. They had their truck there and everything, and I had never heard of them before this event, which is a real shame. But honestly, I'm not too ashamed, because that's a bigger part of my point with going to events like this, and this is how you discover your community. If I hadn't gone to this event, if I hadn't heard of this event, chances are that I may have never heard of this amazing burger company, this amazing food truck that, by the way, the burger did slap. But what I told my friend is part of why I love going to events like this, especially niche community events, is because there's so many small businesses, not just in Nashville, but in general, in your local area, name whatever city, that it's hard to discover all of them on your own, even if you do your research. So this is a way to find out about them and to support them in ways that you might not have elsewise. I'm gonna pretend like that made sense. So while supporting something that I love, hardcore music, local acts, bands, other fans, I also found a new love, found a new small business to support, found new awesome people, and that's just gonna keep branching out for the community. That's how you build community. You have to start with a single twig, and then you start branching. And it's amazing how far those branches can grow, and how quickly, because like I said, I met people at that parking lot show that the next day I saw them at the album release show, and it was like, hey, how you doing? And I saw people at the album release show that I've met at one singular event, like months prior, and they come up and they still know me by name, or they at least know me by face and say hi. And these events are perfect for doing that, because you already have something in common, and it's not just with the fans either. At smaller concerts like these, at smaller shows like these, you can also just talk to the artists themselves and actually bond with them, be a part of the community that they are a part of. Which, by the way, both shows were some of the most fun shows I've ever been to in my life. If that wasn't obvious. And one funny interaction that I had to just showcase how far these branches can reach, I made a post after the Orthodox parking lot show just being like, oh, amazing show, whatever, in the local group. And the next day at the album release show, a guy came up to me and he was like, hey, are you Chey, like from the group? And I was like, yeah, nice to meet you. And the next thing he said to me was, do you want me to put you on my shoulders? That way you can punch people in the head? I'm still exhausted from those two shows. I walked 4.7 miles at the parking lot show, and then 5.8 at the album release show. Walked, was jumping, running around, just being a problem, as one would like to say. Such wonderful events. Wow, I sound like I'm speaking about a high society, like, such wonderful events, such wonderful displays of community, but honestly, it was. I had a not so great experience with a community that rallied themselves around hardcore in a digital space, and I just didn't feel welcome there. I was like, why is everybody so mean and like gatekeepy? And it really turned me off of getting involved in my local scene. But that was like before I actually started going to shows and had my own accessible way to go to shows, like my own car and stuff like that. But once I actually started going to the IRL events, meeting people IRL, as I figured, because it's the same way with metal, literally just the nicest people on the planet, the sweetest people on the planet. Like, hugs all around, high fives all around. I've met you once, hi, I'm hugging you now, if that's okay. You know what I mean? Nothing at all like that one space that I was in. But it's just refreshing to actually experience it, you know? And that was really showcased at these two events, because the hardcore community really is a family, especially in your local scene. The type of family that comes together for events like these, you don't have to speak it. It's just felt. It's in the air. You can go around and go up to someone and be like, hey, can you hold my spot real quick? I'm gonna go get some water. Chances are, 99% of the time, they're gonna be like, yeah, if I can, yeah, yeah, go ahead. It's just the innate sense of belonging in these spaces that I've found is uniquely suited to them that I've never really found anywhere else, personally. Maybe it's just because I'm unhinged and a problem.
Body and soul. Don't take yourself too seriously.
But there are spaces like that for everyone, depending on what your thing is. My thing is music, especially metal, rock, hardcore. So those are the spaces that I found for me. Now, like I said, with my example, clearly not every space is going to be as open and as accepting. Sometimes you just aren't meant to be in that particular space, and you gotta find your own way. My way is just actually at the events, and I'm sure it also depends on the day, it depends on there's always gonna be crappy people everywhere. But if you keep searching, if you keep at it, you will find that space where you walk in and it just feels like, I'm home. You don't have to think about it. You feel it. There's a difference in the air. And that's really what these events were. It could be a number of any factor of things, but going to these events in the first place with that mindset, with that hope, with that attitude, definitely helps. Community means more than ever now. That was a big theme at both of these. The person next to you, on your left and on your right, at your front, behind you, knowing that you can rely on those people and that you can be relied on, that you can be there for others, however you can show up, knowing that you can show up how you can, and knowing that they can do the same, makes all the world of difference. Being a neighbor makes all the world of difference. Was it at the parking lot? I think it was. Adam from Orthodox was talking about, like, you need people who are going to come out and build your stage at 2 a.m. and work for hours just to build this stage for you the next day. You need people you can rely on like that, that will just show you love in that way. We'll do that with no complaints, no questions asked, if they can, how they can. We need to be that for each other as much as we can, because that's love. And really, that's the core of all this. Just finding love in all of this. Because when you have love, you have belonging. Because it's not something that you have to earn. It just is. Your space is not a spot. It's not to be taken over or shoved aside or given. You just have it. There's space for you. I'm kind of going on a little ramble right now, but that's all to say, I love you, Nashville Hardcore. I also want to formally apologize for making a whack-a-mole comment to some people. I was on my way to the event, and I was listening to the new album, and I was like, this sounds, because of the mixing, the way that the mixing is, with some things coming in all of a sudden, and then there just being this underlying current of like, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And I thought that it sounded like whack-a-mole, and my synesthesia was saying that it was a tape machine going haywire at Monster Jam. Tell me why I said this to one of the band members at the merch booth. But I didn't get to explain it. All I said was the new record sounds like whack-a-mole, hardcore whack-a-mole. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I am the way that I am. Love y'all. Love you so much. I love the hardcore community. Nashville Hardcore, stay golden. Stay classy. So overall, when it comes to music events, if you're able to go and you end up enjoying people's stuff, if you can, support the artist merch, or tag them and shout them out in a story that they can then share on social media and expand their reach, or talk to them. Talk to everyone you can, because that is how we build relationships and build our community, and you get offers to get put on people's shoulders and punch people in the head. It's how we build relationships and the world. If you're sensing a theme here, you're right. Mainly, to build or find your own community, you gotta get involved. Hello? Ma'am? Getting engaged? We can't always have my short-term memory is gone. We can't always have the accessibility to frequent places or to go to these events, even if they're free. But you can still make a difference in small ways. Wear local. Represent local in the real world. You don't have to tag a small business in 50 different stories on your Instagram in order to spread the word. Merely using their bumper stickers or wearing a local band's t-shirt while you're out running errands is passive but positive community engagement. You'll not only bring awareness, but you can represent your love for said thing honestly and openly with pride, and encourage and inspire others to do the same. People underestimate how much just showing up matters. It's not the only thing that matters, but it does matter. You can take back the control and connection of your life by uplifting and supporting the community spaces and activities which benefit everyone. Especially the ones that encourage you to do things which you don't want to do strictly digitally anymore. Reading at the library, walking in the park, listening to a songwriter play on the patio of a restaurant while you chat with your friend. Be respectful, mindful, and aware of just how lucky you are to get to do these things. And know that by supporting the community like this with your choices, you're also supporting resources for those who don't have the option. You're helping not just your own wellness, but theirs. And that's what community's about. If you really want to get offline, go old school, and get connected with yourself and others, go do it. The world is waiting on you. Take advantage of it, but never take for granted that you have the choice to be able to do so. In fact, one of the kindest and most punk rock things you can do is to make that choice as accessible to others as you can. Invite people along with you. Get them a ticket to an event. Just invite them over for a movie night. Now get off the computer and get out there. Go do something and have fun with it. And make sure you take care of yourself and each other. Thank you so much for watching. If you ain't heard it from anyone else today, I love you. Love and peace.